Back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens. Michael Baldwin may be standing on the edge of another legal nightmare, and this time the danger is not only in the courtroom. It is in the blood on the floor, the panic in Kyle Abbott's eyes, the terror tearing through Diane Jenkins Abbott, and the cold, calculated way Patty Williams appears to have turned one violent act into a weapon against the very woman she wants destroyed. What should have been a desperate fight to save Jack Abbott's life may soon become something even darker. A carefully staged accusation, a legal trap, and a race against time before the wrong person pays for a crime she did not commit. The week of July 6 to July 10 could become one of the most devastating weeks Diane has faced since returning to Genoa City. She is no stranger to judgment, suspicion, or enemies waiting for her to fall. Diane has spent years trying to prove that she is no longer the woman people once feared, hated, or dismissed. She has worked to reclaim her place beside Jack, rebuild her bond with Kyle, and convince the Abbotts that her love for them is real. Yet all of that fragile progress may collapse in one horrifying moment when she and Kyle return to find Jack bleeding on the floor, badly injured, vulnerable, and possibly fighting for his life. For Diane, the sight of Jack's body on the floor would not simply be shocking. It would feel like the world stopping. Jack is not only her husband. He is the man whose faith in her gave her a second chance when almost everyone else doubted she deserved one. He is the center of the life she fought so hard to rebuild. Seeing him wounded, helpless, and surrounded by signs of violence would rip through every defense Diane has left. Her fear would be immediate and physical, but beneath it would be something even worse, the awareness that this did not happen in a vacuum. Patty was there. Patty had motive. Patty had history. Patty had every reason to hate Diane and every reason to want Jack back under her emotional control. Kyle's horror would only deepen Diane's panic. He would not just be looking at his father in danger. He would be looking at the collapse of the family he has tried to protect. Kyle has lived through enough Abbott chaos to recognize when a crisis is about to spread beyond one room. The blood, the wound, the silence around Jack's suffering, and Patty's presence would immediately tell him that this was more than an accident. But before Kyle and Diane can even process the full reality of what they have found, Patty may move faster than either of them expects. Instead of breaking down under the weight of what she has done, Patty appears ready to point the blame directly at Diane. That is where the real nightmare begins. Patty Williams may be unstable, but instability does not mean she is incapable of strategy. In fact, the most terrifying part of this situation is that Patty seems to understand exactly how to twist chaos in her favor. She knows Diane's reputation. She knows how easily people in Genoa City can be pushed into believing the worst about her. She knows that Diane has a past that can be dragged into the present whenever someone needs a convenient villain. Patty does not need to create suspicion from nothing. She only needs to aim existing suspicion in the right direction and let fear do the rest. By accusing Diane of attacking Jack, Patty would turn grief into evidence and shock into opportunity. Diane's panic could be made to look like guilt. Her desperate attempts to defend herself could be painted as emotional instability. Her presence near Jack could be twisted into proximity to the crime. Every tear, every frantic denial, every broken reaction could be used against her by someone cruel enough to understand how people judge women like Diane before they ever hear the truth. The accusation would be absurd to anyone thinking clearly. Patty has a documented history of dangerous obsession, especially where Jack is concerned. Her connection to him has never been simple or harmless. The very idea that investigators would give her version of events serious weight should feel outrageous, especially when Diane is the one who finds Jack injured and reacts with horror. But Genoa City has never been a place where truth rises easily to the surface. In a town built on secrets, old grudges, and public reputations, the loudest story often becomes the first story people believe. Detective James Burrow may end up making that situation worse. If he allows Patty's accusation to guide the investigation too quickly, Diane could find herself trapped before she even understands the shape of the case being built against her. The police may look at the scene, listen to Patty, weigh Diane's complicated history, and decide that the simplest answer is the one Patty wants them to accept. That would be a devastating mistake, but it would also be exactly the kind of mistake Patty seems to be counting on. The deeper problem is Dr. Lawrence Markham. Patty's accusation alone might not be enough to destroy Diane, but Markham's confirmation could change everything. If he supports Patty's claim that Diane lost control, then the lie gains structure. It stops sounding like the desperate rambling of a woman with a dangerous past and starts looking like corroborated testimony. That is where Diane's situation becomes truly dangerous. A doctor's word carries weight. Markham's position gives him credibility in the eyes of people who may not know the full truth of his involvement, his motives, or the pressure surrounding him. For Diane, that betrayal would feel like a second stabbing. She would already be terrified for Jack. She would already be trying to understand how Patty managed to turn the entire situation upside down. Then Markham's version of events could make it seem as though Diane did not merely stumble into a crime scene, but caused the violence herself. Suddenly, every fact becomes distorted. The blade that hurt Jack, the injury to Patty, Diane's distress, and the confusion of the moment all risk being arranged into a false narrative powerful enough to threaten Diane's freedom. Diane may face serious legal consequences if the accusation takes hold. She could be treated as the person who stabbed Jack and harmed Patty, even though the full responsibility clearly belongs elsewhere. That possibility would crush her, not only because she fears jail or psychiatric confinement, but because she knows what it would do to Jack and Kyle. Diane has spent so long fighting to be seen as someone capable of love, loyalty, and redemption. To be accused of attacking Jack, the man she loves, would be more than a legal charge. It would be an attack on the life she rebuilt piece by piece. The tragedy is that Diane may understand exactly why people could believe it. That is the wound Patty is exploiting. Diane knows her past can still be used against her. She knows there are people who have never fully trusted her transformation. She knows that in moments of crisis, Genoa City often returns to old labels. Schemer, manipulator, dangerous woman. Diane has spent years trying to outgrow those words, but Patty may have found a way to force them back onto her like handcuffs. That is where Michael Baldwin may become crucial. Michael could receive a desperate call from Kyle, Diane, or someone close enough to understand that this case is already moving in the wrong direction. If Diane is arrested or threatened with confinement, she will need more than emotional support. She will need someone who understands how quickly a false narrative can harden into a legal reality. Michael is not merely a lawyer who knows the law. He is someone who knows Genoa City. He knows its grudges, its politics, its history, and its habit of turning personal scandals into public judgments before the facts are clear. Michael would likely understand immediately that Diane is in serious trouble. He may believe in her innocence, but belief is not proof. In court, emotion does not matter unless it can be supported by evidence. Loyalty does not win unless it can survive cross-examination. Michael may look at the situation and recognize the terrible imbalance in front of him. On one side is Diane, shaken and terrified, with a reputation that can be used against her. On the other side is Patty, dangerous but manipulative, backed by Markham's potential confirmation and the confusion of a violent scene. That imbalance would infuriate Michael. He has seen enough injustice to know that the truth can be buried under fear if no one acts quickly. He would also know that Diane's enemies do not need to prove everything immediately. They only need to create enough suspicion to keep her trapped while Patty tightens the noose. If the authorities decide Diane is dangerous, unstable, or capable of harming Jack, Michael may have to fight not only for her innocence, but for her right to be heard at all. His plea to Christine Blair Romalotti could become one of the most important moments in this unfolding crisis. Christine is not someone Michael can easily manipulate or overwhelm. She has her own principles, her own history, and her own understanding of what justice should look like. If Michael comes to her with Diane's case, he must do more than insist that Diane is innocent. He must make Christine see the holes in the accusation before the system locks into the wrong conclusion. Michael's argument would likely be built on urgency. Diane did not benefit from Jack's suffering. Patty did. Diane had every reason to want Jack alive, safe, and protected. Patty had every reason to want Diane blamed and removed from Jack's life. The timeline, the motive, Patty's past, and Markham's suspicious support all demand scrutiny. Michael would have to push Christine to look beyond the first version of events and ask why Patty's story serves Patty so perfectly. But the challenge is that Michael cannot rely only on logic. Patty's trap may be emotionally powerful because it tells people what some of them already suspect. Diane has always been easy for certain people to doubt. If Patty can make Diane look unstable, desperate, or cornered, then the accusation may feel believable even when it is not. Michael's task will be to separate Diane's past from the present facts, and that may be harder than he wants to admit. He may know Diane is innocent, but proving it could be brutally difficult if Markham stands with Patty. A doctor's confirmation can make a lie sound clinical, measured, and credible. Markham does not need to scream or appear emotional. He only needs to present a version of events that supports Patty's claim. That makes him dangerous in a different way. Patty brings chaos. Markham brings the appearance of authority. Together, they could create the exact illusion needed to bury Diane. Meanwhile, Jack's condition remains the emotional center of the crisis. Everything depends on whether he survives and whether he can reveal the truth. Jack is not just a victim. He may be the only person capable of breaking Patty's version of events apart. If Jack wakes and confirms what happened, Diane's nightmare could begin to unravel.